Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Bruno Herrmann. I'm the Vice Chairman of LT-Innovate, and today I have the pleasure to have a conversation with Manuel Herranz from Pangeanic. Hi, Manuel.
Hello, Bruno. Good to speak to you again in Brussels.
It's great that you can spend a bit of time with us today. Much appreciated too, because I've been willing to have that conversation for a long time. We needed to catch up in the past, and we were always busy in different parts of Europe or different parts of the world. So now, today, we are in Brussels and we are on the screen. So that's great. And today, yes, we are going to talk about your company and, of course, indirectly yourself. And just to start this conversation, I wanted to ask you a question that most entrepreneurs have to answer at some point, which is, why did you decide to create your company?
Yeah, people say that you need a little bit of craziness, but of course, a good idea and passion and belief in what you do to create a company. In my case, all that is true, quite true, but let's say the decision was kind of a chain of unexpected events, and the decision was half cooked for me. Let me explain. So I was an engineer. I lived in the UK, got married there, had children, house, dog, etc. And I was working at an engineering company. And one of our clients was called Giddins and Lewis. They were looking for an engineer with languages to act as a link in the commissioning of the new engine plant at Ford in Valencia. And they knew me from my work. They signed me up. They sent me to Valencia, and I was coming and going, training engineers on how to make, in those days, the new Ford cars and so forth. I spent 3 years coming and going to Valencia to sorting out all the machines, training the engineers. Became very familiar with, or I was seconded at Ford. And then from there, I moved for some time to Rolls-Royce, aero engines and submarine. In those days, the aero engines were used for cogeneration. This is prior to solar panels.
Oh, yeah.
96, 97.
Yeah.
So in those days, anything that had a gas exhaust was good enough to turn the blades in a airplane engine and produce electricity. So then again, they sent me to Spain, they sent me to Argentina, Fort God again to go to Chihuahua. I couldn't, because then I was moving back to Spain. In the meantime, as a freelancer, I met a Japanese company called BI that was looking for a European representative. So I had my own consultancy. To cut a long story short, I joined them, created the European subsidiary. I was the director. And in 2005, I came to a friendly buyout, because the group split between the Chinese section, the Japanese section, and the European section. And that's how Pangeanic was born in 2005, 2006. And then I did become the master of my own affairs, and I think it's two years later, after I stabilized the company. In those days, a translation company, an LSP, like everybody else, with very little technology. I began a series of collaborations with the local polytechnic. I saw a demo of a national European project and national project on patent recognition. So the professors that I met were were creating OCR technology that could scan medieval books and then statistically render them in modern Spanish or modern Catalan and modern English. So it was a large project. So they were scanning all the papers from Seville. I can't remember the name, but Spain kept a record of every land and people and village that had dealings with in the days of the empire. So it's like 300 years of documentation that had to scan. And I was converted. I said, wow, guys, if you can do that, you can do anything. And the technology Pangeanic was born.
That's a very nice story. Very nice and very motivating, I would say, because you went to different places. Of course, geographically, you went to different places, but eventually you had an opportunity. And I think that's what most entrepreneurs are saying. I had an opportunity. Now we are in 2026. So 21 years later, I assume during those 21 years, the growth of your company has not always been a walk in the park. So how would you summarize the growth, let's say, from 2005 until today in terms of journey? How would you describe it as an adventure, but also as an achievement?
So I think it is an achievement, even though obviously we've had calls with VCs and investment firms, and I think at some point everybody gets the calls, and or you come to be in the radar of investors and so. But we've managed to stay away. So everything that Pangeanic has achieved has been self-funded. Mm-hmm. The first statistical MT platforms that we had were the result of local developments and national projects that led to European projects later on. And it went well. We had our clients. So yeah, we were in a very nice growth path. We were not immune to the housing crisis, the stock market crash in 2012, 13 hit us a little bit early because we were quite dependent in those days of the Japanese market, and it hit them. Japan has been in a recession or deflation for a long time. So it hit us first, but then we managed the European recession fairly well. I think the game changed in 2017 with the advent of the transformer and all the things that you could do with transformers that before with Moses and other NLP technologies would take a lot of manual work, which comes handy nowadays because it's like having a good hand to write. Of course, LLMs can do that for you. But if you've been a poet or if you've been a journalist before, things will flow much better. So everything changed, and that is the point really at which Pangeanic began to grow and be known, not just for the machine translation, which is still a technology that we sell on-prem, but for all the natural language technologies, all the now called language intelligence, sentiment analysis, anonymization, and infrastructure. So we've always been advocates of independent, self-hosted, sovereign. Nothing against the cloud, yeah, but it was a fashion. And now people, even though they might use the cloud, but a private cloud, but they don't want to be dependent on other people's tokens or token generation. Which can I digress here a little bit, Bruno?
Yeah, sure.
Which takes me to something I've been writing about lately. When you subcontract this type of language intelligence to large companies that are ontology-based, you run the risk of changing from capital expenditure from CapEx to operation expenditure. So if you buy 10 licenses of X, Windows, you know very well where the ROI is. If you buy some tables and chairs and computers and 10 GPUs, you know that you've calculated the ROI. But when you contract intelligence services that build and then are billed by the token, you are basically subcontracting your decision making, your cognition, to a third party. And that's very dangerous from an independent, from a sovereign point of view, which people in Europe here are quite aware of, but not just for Europe, for countries in Africa and in any part of the world. And is ironic, and I don't think anybody's prepared to pay for a doctor checking you out and saying, well, Bruno, it is your kidney. Lift your shirt. I'm going to look at your kidney. 10 cents. Bruno, yes, yeah, I think it's quite red. Okay, so Bruno, kidney that red. Could you do the data? Okay, another 15 cents because you're using tokens. So I see the engineering, and engineering is, and you know what company I'm talking about.
Yeah.
The engineering is wonderful. It's very well done. Not that it cannot be replicated. Everything can be replicated. Selling is very powerful, but it's very. I think it's very dangerous. I think it's very dangerous when you change the acquisition mind, whether it's services or products, to I'm going to subcontract my cognition.
Well, I'm really glad you made that point, because the risks around cognitive offloading are really, I mean, those risks are really serious. You know, everybody talks about, of course, infrastructure and the data. All that is very important. But when you look at what's in there, you know, in the infrastructure, in the data, that's where, of course, you have a lot of value that can be kept, that can be offloaded, that can be sometimes, unfortunately, spoiled. So it's just a very interesting point you mentioned. And you mentioned another point, which I'm sure you will circle back on in a few minutes, which is that when we look at the cost of implementing a solution based on language intelligence or any solution based on data today, there is something that is sometimes a bit ignored or misunderstood or misevaluated, which is the total cost of ownership, the famous TCO, the TCO. Because of course, I'm totally with you about OPEX and CAPEX. You have to include that. You have to make it very clear, transparent. But you know, I realize more and more in my projects that a number of people are, of course, they are focused sometimes on a number of costs that are, you know, related to infrastructure, related to data, and related to engineering, etc. But they tend to sort of not connect the dots when it comes to total cost of ownership. And you know, we see that now with tokens. There are companies that are, well, suddenly there are concerns that the cost of tokens is still there just because they pushed all their employees to use AI. And of course, that's the bright side of it. The flip side of it, of course, that, you know, they exploded the budgets related to tokens. And of course, they didn't include the cost of tokens seriously enough in the TCO. They said that, oh yeah, it's going to be a cost, but they didn't link the adoption of AI with the cost of tokens, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, absolutely. I know. Absolutely. And that's not what we do. We have a philosophy with all those added, and we give the choice to our clients to self-host. Incidentally, you can, you know, if you're free, while you're here, you can go to our website and sign up to our self-hosted LLM. You can do search. You can do a small model. Is like I think it just takes one GPU, one H100, but you can do most things that you do with the Gemini's, ChatGPT's. Claude, to a degree, is fairly good at generating code as well. It's based on Gemma 4, tweaked a little bit, and NCP connections. And we host it, you know, and we're one company in Valencia. So if one company in Valencia can do it and can serve 100 or 200, okay, there will be a time when that infrastructure would have to move to cloud and so on. But for 100 or 200 users, it's more than enough.
Yeah.
And really, you know, a ministry, a department of defense, police, is not more than 100 or 200 people. So I think we are the prime example of things working and being sovereign and being the master of foreign affairs. when it comes to cognition. So we have to practice, what we preach.
That's a very nice statement. We have to practice what we preach, because the gap sometimes is not insignificant. So it's good. And but you mentioned, of course, everything that you have already achieved until today. And so if I were totally ignorant, or if I were just a journalist, let's say, how would you maybe not sell, but how would you describe your value proposition and your solutions, your services, so that this journalist would say, oh yeah, I understand what Manuel and Pangeanic are doing.
Okay, so you are a sports journalist, and the director of the science section is sick today, and you've been parachuted in this interview with an AI person. You have no knowledge whatsoever. You're a master. You're going to cover the World Cup in 3 weeks, but you have no idea of AI and algorithms. You just
exactly. I'm totally transformed, Manuel. Okay. Totally transformed. Yeah.
Okay. So Bruno, what we do, so people understand, in a sentence, Pangeanic covers the whole journey from data acquisition, gathering data. We have data as OTS, any type of data, text, speech, image, from data acquisition to tuning or building the system to deployment.
End to end, yeah.
So that means, and I do get complaints from staff sometimes saying, we do too many things. And I understand, yes, it's a lot of things. We need a department. We have a department that is concerned with data, and the people that deal with data acquisition, data sales, that are not really related to our projects, but we sell data to other organizations and some large companies or projects. We've been involved in Spain in the creation of several data spaces for, I think we were involved in the language data space for Spain, quite similar to European language data Spain, but they did it regionally. We've been involved in data acquisition for the LLM that Barcelona Supercomputing Center created for Spanish language, Catalan and so forth. Those people don't necessarily know a lot about the AI section. We're not that big a company, but they're quite specialized. Like you know everything about corners and penalties, but you don't know anything about AI. Today.
Absolutely.
Today. There is that section, and there is the bigger section of Pangeanic, which is machine learning / AI, whatever you want to call it, that is wholly dedicated to tuning models for translation for different tasks, automating code creation, front ends, tuning systems for clients, building solutions, testing a lot of R&D. R&D is expensive. Expensive because you don't see you're not selling apples. I come with my box of apples. I have my people come, I sell the apples, I make money tonight. Less money than yesterday, more money than tomorrow, but I've sold so many apples. With R&D, it's a long it's a trial and error, and maybe you fail 3 times until you actually see, and you have to try different systems until you nail the system that you want for the specific purpose. But it means that when at the time of carrying out a project or tuning the system or building a solution for clients, we always pick the right models and they tune them to what exactly the client wants. With ontologies, without ontologies, with RAG, without RAG, every project is different. Like I said, we've been involved in data spaces, a number of projects, we still are. We have one running with a local university for, I think they have an agreement with Ford as well, incidentally. So they're building an ontology for automotive industry. We're holding the data on the ontologies. They're open, anybody can download them. and we are in the Mediterranean corridor data space as well, the European language space. So yeah, we do a lot of things. Mostly, the AI lab side is the biggest one. There is a section which is still translation, human translation, but yeah, it's 2026, and sadly or fortunately, I don't know, but it is being cannibalized by the side of Pangeanic that is developing systems like deep adaptive translation and MTQE, and it's a sign of the days.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's a very interesting overview. And the first thing that comes to mind when I listen to you is that any company, I believe, any company at any stage of maturity of AI could come to you, right? They don't have to be super mature. They can be just starting, and you can help them at any stage, right?
True. We work primarily for, well, if I was to split, we do more work for private industry than government, but it is close. It's, I'd say, 60-40. I say, for example, it's not a secret. It's on our website. It's a success story. We ran the machine translation platform in a private cloud, in a server, in a data center in Valencia for the tax office for international investigations. Pure machine translation, document machine translation. We've been doing that for years. So it's a bunkerized version of, I don't think even it's a current Echo. It's like our Echo document translator from years ago. So from those deployments for government to, yes, companies that are beginning or have heard some posts about agents in LinkedIn, and we don't know, but it sounds clever, and I'm sure that we can save some money and do something good with agents. What do you recommend? We have those inquiries as well, and then people that want to improve their systems. So it's a little bit of consultancy, and serious AI companies that are running projects and say, look, we want specialists. You have a long story in language. So, can we hire you to do this task or run that or do that for us? Yeah.
The reason why I was stating that you could help any company at any stage of AI operationalization is because you mentioned a very important word. It's data. And of course, in AI, everything starts with data, and it continues with data as well, but it starts with data. And I hear and I read sometimes testimonials from companies that have been embracing AI-enriched operations or product management, whatever, and they didn't make a real mistake, but they were too confident about their data strategy. And it's not because some companies have some data that they are ready actually to start jumping on the AI bandwagon, just because, of course, yes, data is data, but is it relevant? Is it trustworthy? Is it accurate, etc., etc.? And I'm glad you mentioned, of course, that you can really help them with data acquisition, data management, language data, because and if we talk about language intelligence, everything is in data now, and it's still, we are in 2026, and I still come across people and organizations that are more or less aware of their data strategy, but some of them have data but no strategy. So I think that you can really jump in and say, hey guys, it's time to organize, right?
Yeah. We call it AI data operations. So because we know the pain because we've been there before. So number one, everybody has a data lake, and you can try to address it. You can try to organize as much of the data lake as you have, but you will always have some kind of data lake. Number two, companies, governments, departments are living organisms. They produce data. It's just the point is that we hadn't realized that all the documentation, all the entry points, the linking of data points can lead to very intelligent decisions. So let's take health as a very clear example. Health systems tend to have a number of databases. So I'm patient 1, 2, 3, right? And my doctor goes, Manuel, 1, 2, 3, everything. But if and when there is another pandemic and somebody asks the question, what people were working in the night shift when patient 1, 2, 3 was short of his medication, because it's those people that are at risk. Well, you are now looking at 3 or 4 systems. You're looking at the clocking system, people that were on the shift that night. You're looking at the system that holds and sometimes it's private, so it may or may not be linked to my profile as a patient, the registrar, and the history of contamination or people having contracted. How are these people? Have they become sick because they're in contact with me? So not just the fact that they were working that night, but have they been working? So that question cannot be answered with simple databases. So systems that can link that data, i.e. patient takes medicine is a drug, employees work in shifts run morning, afternoon, in 8-hour shifts, plus or minus a couple of hours. Disease, contracting a disease, being in touch, so linking the shift to 1, 2, 3. That type of data is what needs to be recorded. Everybody's far behind. Everybody's very far behind. But it is ultimately what some different company. Well, there are developments around the world, and it is what has been changing journalism, investigative journalism to start with. It is what's been changing the game for open source intelligence, because you have to link Manuel Herranz. LinkedIn is actually the same as Manuel Herranz in X, which is actually the same as Little Red Riding Hood in a investment firm in Bahamas, and he's the same guy undercover, because I was using a straw man in the Panama Papers. Okay, so that type of linking data, it's fairly easy when you find the data points, and fairly easy. I mean, it is everyday stuff. It's complicated in the sense that the data points are different. But once you know what you're doing, the results are wonderful. And it's the type of things that you can do with a ChatGPT subscription or a Claude subscription.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's a great point. And when we talk about data, we say data is everywhere today. There are a few companies that are not dealing with data. But equally important, language is everywhere as well, just like data. And that's why we are so keen and eager to promote language intelligence across LT-Innovate, but not just across LT-Innovate, across different industries. So, and we noticed, obviously, language intelligence, the value of language intelligence depends on the balance between automation, which is mostly AI today, and on the other side, augmentation, which is what humans still need to do or have to do. So from your perspective, being so deep into operations and client requirements, etc., what is the advice or the recommendation that you would give to people who are still not quite understanding this balance between the machine and the human?
So I think we're quite fortunate because we're mixing two different concepts, language and intelligence. But a lot of what we call intelligence nowadays, or LLM-based AI systems, are based on language. Not everything. There's computer vision. Speech is part of language. It's not just written. But okay, so taking away computer vision and object recognition and those patterns, I'd say a large, I don't know, but a very large percentage of cognition happens through language. And the records that we leave humans in our organizations are language-based, data, text, or audios. Okay, and multimodal videos, yeah, but there's an element of audio there. So the intelligence part is almost solved. I came under criticism a few years ago because I wrote an article called "Language is No Longer Human." You had, come 2023, you had machines that everybody has become very familiar with that produce human quality language. Okay, then we can discuss if there is a hallucination and Napoleon wasn't born in Corsica and they get wrong. Yep, yeah, fine. But we made those mistakes as well, and that's why there are so many game shows on the television, because you test human intelligence and memory. So at scale, intelligence is a lost battle. Now, I cannot compete with the intelligence that, I'm not going to say a big system, but even my self-hosted LLM can provide. It knows a lot more about code already. It can translate and express itself in more languages than I can. And it can give it a good search on the internet, and it can put several pieces of information together and draft a report much faster than I can do. What it cannot do, and this is where humans come in, is it cannot be clever, number one, and it doesn't have a contact list. So I am. There was an info day by a local newspaper in Valencia about augmenting human capabilities and being more productive with AI. And I said, look, I can go if you want, but I'm going to spoil your party, and then again, I'm not going to pay 4,000 euros to be interviewed by your newspaper and spoil your beautiful party. But if you're framing the conversation in let's make humans more productive with AI, you're completely missing the point. Okay, that was okay in the 19th century when we had weavers, and that was okay in late 19th century, early with the cars replacing horses. But AI is not a tool to make people more productive. Journalists are not going to write more articles with AI. Teachers are not going to teach more children thanks to AI. And doctors are not going to write any more prescriptions thanks to AI. You're completely missing the point. The point with AI is that it can help clever people make the right choices or take the right decisions, if you wish. Okay, and people confuse. They used to confuse. Some years ago, they used to confuse intelligence and power. So AI is going to dominate us. Well, domination is a human trait. And what I've seen through history is that, except a couple of cases, very intelligent people did not have the dominant trait, and the other way around. Okay, there's not confuse ambition with intelligence, but that is a human fear. So we believe, humans, that because you've attended certain universities and you've published a number of papers and you're a PhD, you're clever. No, you're intelligent. You've proven your intelligence to the community. Now, guess what? There are machines that can do your work, can write a PhD dissertation in better words, true, okay, nothing new, but it can do it at scale, and then you can come and correct it and enhance it. but the machine is not going to be clever. And the machine doesn't replace the real human value, which is the contacts and how you can leverage these contacts, clever, to create something unique and value.
Yeah.
Okay? The scaling, the depth, the investigation, the facts, the searching for facts and rendering those facts in a report. Okay, you can subcontract it. You can delegate it to an intelligence machine. I don't like the word intelligence for that. Let's say, a thinking machine, if you will.
No, you're right. Well, I use it very carefully as well, because intelligence is really, words matter. Intelligence really relates to something very specific. And to your point, I don't think either that when we talk about, AI practitioners, let's say, they all agree on one thing, is that AI is increasing speed and capacity. Okay, but that's not intelligence. It's not because you are fast that you are intelligent. It's not because you can do a lot that you are intelligent either. So that is where this balance between automation and some people being obsessed by automation, or the opposite, being obsessed with human augmentation. You have sometimes two worlds, two sort of sides of the debate, and they are just in friction. We just talked about, of course, what keeps us awake in 2026. I know it's difficult to make predictions about what's going to happen, but for you and for Pangeanic, what would you say as a priority for the next 18 months? How do you see the future and the priorities, the opportunities?
So no predictions here.
No.
But what am I going to be working on in the next 18 months, 2 years? That I can share. We've been working for some time in task-specific language models, small language models, mentioning. I was beating the drums a lot last year about them, and it's the time to do work, which is not different, then again, to the work that we have been doing, for example, in machine translation. A single isolated MT is a task-specific small language model. So that's going to go, but now framed in a cognitive wrapper. So yes, there is the small model which you need. And my advice to organizations and companies is, look, I know that I probably won't make more money with this, but be independent, get this model, we'll charge you for it, host it yourself, okay? We're not these other companies. Number one, and then building the intelligence layer, for which you can use there are many different techniques. The knowledge graphs, the RAG is evolving into different flavors and colors. Okay, it's not just the indexing. You need clever indexing to retrieve data there. And then projects that involve connecting the dots, as I was saying. So Manuel Herranz LinkedIn is the same guy as this profile there, is the guy that is hiding $300 million in Bermuda and is Mr. X in the Panama Papers. That kind of, those type of systems. And so, yeah, OS intelligence, I see that. And then organizations that require connecting the dots. Health, for example. I was in Africa some time. So health, access to health and education, I see as two primary human rights for which AI can make a difference and can save lives and can save a lot of lives.
Yeah. Well, AI for good. That's that's what we all hope for. I'm sure people in the audience will be interested in knowing more about Pangeanic. That was another very insightful conversation, and a pleasant one as well. Manuel, thanks a lot for your time. Thanks to the audience, and we'll be back soon with more videos. Thank you very much.
My pleasure, Bruno. Always happy to help.
Thank you.
Thank you.